Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron delivers fresh ingredients and recipes to your door so you can cook something new and interesting tonight. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by visiting blueapron.com/MacVoices. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And by the new MacVoices presence on Facebook. Watch your favorite MacVoices episodes on our Facebook page and discuss them or anything tech-related in our new MacVoices Facebook group. Join the party, express your opinion, and make your voice heard. Welcome to Mac Notables on MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I'm pleased always to have Mr. Bryan Chaffin back with us. This time, I'm bestowing upon him the title of Kellyanne Conway's Valentine, which I think is somehow appropriate. Bryan will be back after he finishes being apoplectic.
Guten Tag, Herr Joyner, Herr Trump.
You didn't see that coming, did you, Bryan?
I did not see that coming.
Good. That's good.
Yes, good. She is.
Anytime I can crack you up like that is a good day. It's a really good day.
Did not see that coming, sir. Did not see that coming.
Well, see, I keep taking my cue from the Apple Context Machine, where you assign yourself a title. Sometimes they're very unusual titles, and so I just see if I can one up you.
I don't think I've repeated the same title once, and we're at episode 399 or something like that.
I mean, obviously it's tough to keep all of them in my head, but I don't remember you repeating one either. So
I probably have at some point. Yeah. I think I might have repeated hobo.
Okay.
Once. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. I will take your Valentine title and wear it with horror.
Good. This is the first time we've had you back on since I saw you at CES. It seems like it was just yesterday, but wow,
that's true. Time
flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. How did you? Yeah, that's right. How did you like CES? I mean, I know that you're a pretty regular attendee. Anything really jump out at you as far as trends this year?
There's a bunch of TV stuff I didn't pay attention to. There was a lot of home automation stuff. A lot of HomeKit products were announced, which is good. Although I noticed there were almost no HomeKit products that didn't also have Alexa support and or Google Home. Alexa first and or Google Home second.
Right.
So a lot of that stuff, a lot of smart stuff that is still just a Internet of Things surveillance botnet catastrophe waiting to happen. Very few companies are still focused on that. We had Belkin enter, or Linksys, which is owned by Belkin. They entered the mesh networking market with Velop, which I'm using right now. Saw some good headphones. Folks at Blue Microphone. I got their Ella and Sadie headphones for testing today. Yeah, I don't know. It was a good event. There was lots of stuff going on. Lots of Apple stuff, Apple related stuff, and it was busy. And I still hate the show.
Okay, we were going up, and then it just dropped right off there. It is a lot of work. There's no question. It's tough trying to narrow down what's interesting and what's important, and that second one is probably even tougher.
Yeah, it really is. And, I don't even know how you do it. You are such a machine with your interviews and then processing those interviews and actually posting them. It's I don't even know how you do it, brother.
It's honestly, it's fun because you're getting to talk to people about their products, and so much of the time, not always, but so much of the time you're talking to people that are actually doing the developing or the creating, and that always gets my juices going because, they clearly, I mean, sure, they're there to make money and they're there because they think these products will sell. But there's also, I always think, a certain degree of belief behind these products, that this is really something cool and something useful and something that will, at one level or another, improve people's lives. So,
yeah, I saw some nonsense though.
Oh, well, you always do. Come on. You know, what was your favorite nonsense?
I don't want to name names because I don't think they'll ever be released. Good. And I don't want to be a jerk. But if they do get released, I'll call them nonsense.
Okay.
But I saw some things that were. Let me tell you something about me, Chuck. I have been on guard for a long time about being that guy who looks down his nose at the younger generation, the kids. Been on guard against that. Goes back to. Do we have time for a story here?
Sure, we always have time.
Goes back to this essay I heard read on NPR, and it was a woman. It was just it's one of their sort of like end user editorials that they occasionally broadcast once a week. I guess they'll broadcast an end user editorial, and this woman was going on about how crappy rap music is. The music is not good. The musicianship is not good. The lyrics aren't good. It's all misogyny and sexism, drugs, and violence, and things like that. All of it. And it's no good. And then she said, now first of all, I disagree with her on those things. But then she said, oh, sure. That's what my parents said about my music. But my music was different because my music was really cool. And my parents just didn't get it. It's like, I mean, she's completely oblivious that she's her freaking parents, man. It's just so ridiculous. It was like, it was the kind of thing that if you'd seen it on a scripted show, you would have gone, oh, come on, you guys are being lazy. That's ridiculous. No one's that stupid. Yet this woman was that stupid. And it was just such this wake up call for me. It's like, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy who looks at what people who were coming up in the generations after him, that looks at what they're doing and then dismisses it as not valid. It's somehow illegitimate. Don't do that. And yet,
is this True Confessions, Brian?
This is True Confessions. I have found myself getting cranky with the millennials. To wit, there was a company showing a product. So I guess I am going to name some names. I forget what the name of the company is at this point, but they had two products, the box and the loop. And the loop was new, and the box, I'm not even exactly sure how the box did this, but it was a box and it had some squares with lights on them. And I believe you used a smartphone app to indicate to the box that you have something important to add to the conversation in some kind of a meeting. And then whoever's running the meeting can use the box to recognize the person so that they can have their input into the meeting. And I'm just thinking to myself, are you freaking kidding me? Right. And then he starts showing me the loop. And what the loop does is it puts ideas onto a monitor in an office so that the kids can get the reinforcement and the likes for their ideas that they've come to expect from social media. Are you and I said this, I said, are you kidding me? Except I didn't say that because I said, are you effing kidding me? And I did not use the freaking or fracking euphemism for the other F word. And yeah.
So I missed this product. Is this, and again, we're not trying to disparage anyone. We're talking more about Brian's attitude change.
This is more about me. This is more about me. And here's the deal, Chuck. I want to know what my people did and your people, these people who are like somewhere between 45 and 60. What the hell did we do to raise these kids? That's because we did this. We did this.
I don't have any kids.
No. It's not. I don't either, man. That's not the. Okay. That's not the thing. It's our cohort was running the schools. And it was our cohort that decided that people need a trophy for participating, and that everyone's a winner, and all of these things. You probably didn't expect this particular attitude. We never talked about this.
No, this came right out of left field, but I'm having a good time with it.
This probably surprises you about me. I am not down with the idea that there are no winners and losers, and I'm not down with the idea that you should get a frickin' trophy for participating. I don't like it. And you know what? I don't care if you need likes on your frickin' idea. It's a stupid idea. Go away.
Well, okay, so I'll play devil's advocate just for the fun of it.
Oh, this is fascinating. I can't believe that we're going to be on this particular. Oh, go ahead. Please.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess I can see the value in likes. I mean, likes smacks of social media. I can see the value in somebody saying that's a good idea, and designating it in some fashion. I'm not sure that those situations really should be a democracy as to, okay, we're going to pursue this idea, because we're into now a discussion of management and who's calling the shots. But on the other hand, if you're a manager, you want feedback from your people. So is this a way to give it?
And this is a way this was utterly catering to young people who just can't handle the fact that they're actually being held accountable for stuff out in the real world. And I've become that guy, man. Yeah, sure. That's fine. That's what my parents said when I was a kid, but that's different because when I was a kid, I was awesome. I become that guy because guess what? I wasn't awesome when I was a kid. I was an idiot. I'm still an idiot, but I was more of an idiot when I was a kid. Turns out that most of us are idiots when we're kids.
You were always pretty awesome, Brian.
I don't know about that, man. You didn't know me when I was young.
Well, are you old now? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Which, by the way, you're a little bit older than me, so yes, that means you are also old. Sorry.
By the calendar, perhaps, but of course I still love you.
No, I'm still a big giant kid too, which also kind of means I'm still kind of an idiot sometimes. But no, it's funny, man. I have been on guard, and I have. Well, I mean, I've never liked popular music. I have been so on guard against becoming this guy, this person, this human, this adult. I've been so on guard against it, and I've just been slipping into it, man. Been slipping into it. I don't like it. I kind of wish I could defeat this instinct. And pull up your pants.
Isn't this, folks? This is not our usual MacVoices fare, but we're going to just go with it. Brian, is some of this just a consequence of us gathering up experiences?
No, you know what it is, Chuck? It's that every generation is different, and every generation does think that the next generation is the worst generation to ever come along. The millennials are going to be just fine. Things might be different, but they're going to be just fine. They'll figure it out.
Oh, they're definitely going to be different.
And my generation, I mean, like every generation does some great things and some bad things. I will say that I absolutely have a lot of admiration for the parents of the baby boomers. Admiration that I don't have for the baby boomers, and admiration I don't necessarily have for us. So I do idolize the World War II generation. That the so-called greatest generation. I idolize them. I think they did some. I think they did some amazing things. So it's not that every generation is equal. It's that it turns out that by and large we figure out how to get along, and that as we get older, we all have different tolerances on what we will accept in the form of change. From art to fashion to music. I mean, like we see this with I definitely have no tolerance for people who look at the way kids dress and dismiss it as illegitimate or invalid. That has been going on for all of time, and I will not fall into that trap. So I say. Same thing with music. Music changes. People hated Bill Haley. People hated the Beatles. People hated Elvis Presley. People hated Kiss. People hated Bowie. Bowie's idolized now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the boy bands still suck, but that's beside the point because Justin Timberlake is my BFF. I love him. I will. Justin. It's music changes throughout the years and fashions change throughout the years. Haircuts change throughout the years. By the way, one of my favorite things from the hippie era is, cut that hair, boy. Jesus had long hair. Well, you ain't Jesus, boy. That to me is like the funniest comeback. I disagree with the sentiment, but it's the funniest comeback of all time. But I mean, the reality is that, our founding fathers wore freaking powdered wigs, man. Powdered wigs and ponytails, man buns in the back of their head, right? I mean, things like that are always going to change. And if one generation is okay with what the next generation is doing when it comes to fashion and music, that generation is doing it wrong.
Oh, that's an interesting sentiment.
Truth according to Bryan.
Okay. That right there's a column you should start to write. The truth according to Bryan.
Truth according to Bryan. Wow.
Right there. Right. We have it, folks. We have it. Look for the truth according to Bryan coming soon to the Mac Observer.
You say folks. It's not like anyone's still tuning into this particular episode. They've tuned out a long time ago.
That may be true, but I'd like to believe that there are one or two sticking with us. So, yeah, I like that. Blue Apron is sponsoring this edition of Mac Voices, and I'm happy about it because I like to eat and I like to cook. The only trouble is that cooking takes time, more time than just preparing the food. It takes time to do the shopping, which means going to the store. It also means that I have to plan the trip to the store, which takes even more time. And let's not forget about finding the recipes to fix, which really starts the whole process. Blue Apron solves all those problems. When you try Blue Apron, you set your food preferences so you never get anything you don't like. Not a fan of seafood? Don't care for lamb? No problem. Just tell Blue Apron that, and they adjust your choices. Then, select your meal plan. Do you typically cook for 2 or for 4? Fill in some additional information for shipping, and get ready. When your Blue Apron box arrives, what you get is exactly what you need to cook fantastic, delicious meals. You get the recipes. You get all the ingredients in exactly the right proportions and quantities, so there's no waste. And you get it all packed and marked so there can be no confusion about which ingredients go with which recipes. The ingredients that need refrigeration are packed between 2 ice packs that keep everything cold and frozen solid, even if you have to wait until you get home to unpack them. Everything is wrapped inside an insulated bag so everything stays fresh and is protected from the outside world. Then the fun begins, because all you have to do is follow the step-by-step instructions to create something you probably haven't had before. Blue Apron is always developing new and interesting recipes, and they don't repeat anything for a full year. Remember my time concerns? Blue Apron meals can be fixed in 30 to 40 minutes from start to finish. So they're not only delicious and convenient, but they won't cost you an evening's work preparing them. Blue Apron truly is a better way to cook. I want you to try Blue Apron right now by visiting blueapron.com/MacVoices. When you do, Blue Apron will send you 3 free meals delivered to your door free so you can have the Blue Apron experience top to bottom. You get the pleasure of cooking and eating delicious food with your family, and you get to try Blue Apron for free while you do it. I know you're going to love it because I love it. That's blueapron.com/MacVoices for 3 free meals and free shipping. Sign up right now and start eating better. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Thanks to Blue Apron for their support of Mac Voices. Well, after all that, let me tell you something that you definitely did right, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I didn't even get to it yet. As we record this, I guess it's been 2 Fridays ago, you and Dave Hamilton and Jeff Gamet on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast had a discussion about Apple and politics and Tim Cook and Apple and politics. Mm-hmm. And it was probably one of the best discussions I've heard because you each advocated your opinions, but you were very civil about it. You were respectful about it. You listened to each other instead of trying to shout each other down. I came away so impressed that I sent you, the 3 of you, an email, and your response to that email is what triggered this. Because first of all, I loved what you guys did there. And folks, go back and check. I'm sorry, I think it was the last Friday in January, I believe. But anyway, you stated your position to me about why Apple should be involved in politics. And it really gave me pause because I hadn't thought about it in your terms. And so I wanted you to expound on that a little bit as to why Apple should be, and I am talking Apple now, not necessarily Tim Cook, but why Apple needs to be doing what they're doing. So this is the truth according to Bryan.
Well, thank you. I think I already said that, but I'll say it again. Thank you. I think there's plenty of debate that reasonable minds can have about the particulars of Tim Cook's involvement in politics or Apple's involvement in politics. What I think is inarguable, and this is the point that you honed in on, is whether or not Apple should or should not be involved in politics. And part of that comes down to, because I got to give some backstory for that, because I've been doing this for 18 years at the Mac Observer. And I have been accused over the years, of being a lefty, a righty, a communist, a fascist, a corporatist, a thief and a pirate, which is hilarious. And I don't know, every other thing you can possibly imagine. I've been accused at one point or another by someone, a reader, in email and comments on social media, whatever. Snowflake. I've been accused of being a snowflake recently. And what I have found very consistently is that there are people who will tell me that I shouldn't talk about politics at a Mac site or an Apple site. And the thing is, without exception that I can remember, it's possible that I've just forgotten the exceptions because I've been doing this for a long time. The people who have told me that have almost always then proceeded to tell me why my opinion is wrong. In other words, I can't express my opinion, but they can. But it's always been, you shouldn't talk about politics because I disagree with you. Or I disagree with you and you shouldn't talk about politics. I've never been told by anyone who agrees with me that I shouldn't be talking about politics. And the thing is that I've always talked, when politics have come up at TMO, it's always been something that involved Apple and politics, because technology and politics intersect all the time. And I have zero respect for anyone who says you shouldn't talk about politics because I disagree with you. I have no intellectual respect for that whatsoever. So looking at Apple, the criticism that I've seen leveled against Tim Cook for speaking out about anything political and criticizing it and saying that he shouldn't be doing it has always come from people who disagree with him. Again, I've got no respect for that. And the reality is this: Apple is worth, I don't know, Apple hit an all-time high today, $133, 29 cents a share. Market capitalization is getting close to $700 billion again. It's not an all-time high, but $700 billion Apple is worth. Apple is so big and is worth so much money, and its products have become so vital to so many aspects of what we do on a daily basis for so many of us. It is impossible for politics not to become involved in what Apple's doing. And for that reason, Apple has to be involved in politics. And for that reason, it is reasonable for Tim Cook to be personally involved in politics and make personal statements about political issues when they involve Apple. And in particular, I have no doubt that there are political issues about which Tim is passionate that he does not speak about publicly, does not advocate publicly, because they don't involve Apple. So to me, Tim Cook is doing the right thing on this, on the things that he has spoken out about. So we have, you're letting me monologue, so I guess I'm going to monologue. We've got the immigration issue he spoke out about. It's an issue that directly impacted Apple employees. seems to me that that's something Tim Cook has a right and an obligation to be involved in. He's also where I think reasonable minds are going to find more room to disagree on. He's also spoken about such issues as diversity and gay rights and equality and equal rights for women as well. And again, what I have seen, I'm sure there are exceptions out there, but what I have seen is that people who don't want him talking about those things are all people who disagree with his stated positions. And my argument for Tim Cook is that Tim Cook believes that diversity in culture as well as diversity in the workplace makes Apple better. And because he believes, rightly or wrongly, that that's the case, that Apple is a better company with diversity in culture, with diversity in the workplace, with his workers, with his gay workers in particular, not having to worry about things like whether or not they can marry their loved one, without women having to worry about whether or not they're going to be given equal pay for equal work, be able to get maternity leave, whether or not they're going to be able to have an abortion. I mean, that he believes that those things make Apple better, and because he believes that, he should speak up about it. And that's my position.
And yours was the first explanation of that position that I agreed with. Because I've listened to some of this stuff, and I admit I've been one who, on certain issues, have thought, okay, is this Tim Cook speaking from? Is he speaking from the Apple perspective, or is he speaking from the Tim perspective? And when you kind of went through it the way you just did, it's like, okay, Tim's not commenting on the importing of green peas from England or something. I don't know where that came from. But he's talking about issues that do impact Apple. And as you just finished saying, his belief that those issues impact Apple. And I have to admit, I readjusted my thinking a little bit, especially when you pointed out that Apple is the largest country in the world. Yes, flex a little, if you will.
That's an enormous compliment, by the way, Chuck. I can't tell you how much that affects me.
Well, listen, you affected me because and right now, and folks, you notice what we're both, I think, at least I'm trying to, and I think Bryan is too. We're not trying to take positions on any of this. This is not our debate to have. It's more.
I don't think I think I just did a really bad job of hiding how I feel about things. But go ahead.
Well,
let's go with that.
Yeah. But we're not debating that. I mean, that's not what we're here for. We're here as to why Tim and Apple should do this. And the thing that I've got to ask it, and I hate going this direction, but I'm going to do it anyway, is Steve didn't. Now, Steve, from my perspective, and the reason I think that Tim is valid in this, as in follow-up to you, Steve existed, and Steve lived at a different time in political history. Steve definitely was steering a different company than Apple is now. I mean, there's so many differences, and even Steve told Tim, don't do what I would have done, do what you would do. I think I paraphrased that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, don't worry about what I would have done, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that. When Steve was healthy, Apple was a tiny fraction of the size that it is. Right. Apple was an iPod and Mac maker, worth billions of dollars for sure, bringing in billions, bringing in a lot of money for sure. But Apple was not the giant behemoth that it has become. And in the last several years of his life, once the iPhone was released and Apple started growing bigger and bigger and bigger, Steve was dying. He was battling cancer. He was trying to set up Apple in a way that was going to survive him, including Apple University, including giving interview time to Walter Isaacson so that his kids could know a little bit more about who he was. That's actually one of the reasons that he told Walter that he agreed to do that book with Walter. And he was trying to get Apple Campus 2.0 built, and he was trying to get the iPad fixed. If you remember, the iPad got delayed because he came back from a health break and postponed it because he wasn't happy with some stuff. And my point being that I got to back up. Tim Cook actively supported Al Gore, and he was public about having offered Al Gore marketing help during Al Gore's run for the presidency in 2000. He was public about that. And he brought Al Gore onto the board. Now, I believe that he did so because he believed that Al Gore was going to bring something to the Apple board. Reasonable minds can disagree on that. But that was in part a political decision. So it's not like Steve was apolitical. Steve made it very clear that he largely supported democratic issues. He also made it very clear that he supported things like diversity. So he wasn't as outspoken as Tim was. I don't know that we would have not seen him be outspoken in today's climate.
Wow, that's an interesting point.
Can't prove it. I don't know. Kind of have a feeling you would, though. But maybe I'm projecting. I don't know.
Well, at that time, there certainly was not social media, or nowhere to the degree, anywhere close to the degree it is now. So those opportunities didn't exist to address, I don't want to say small issues because these are not small issues, but maybe less on-topic issues from a technology standpoint. And maybe these issues weren't as big a deal back then.
I don't know that Steve would have wasted his time on Twitter. I think Steve would have actually seen Twitter as a bit of a waste of time, but I think that he would have. I think he would have spoken out. I think he would have been asked questions in shareholder meetings, just like Tim Cook has been asked, just like he was asked when he was still actively involved in shareholder meetings. And I think he would have spoken his mind, just like Tim has in shareholder meetings. And Tim has been very, very, very out front on the environment. He was very out front on the environment when Steve was still alive. Steve let him do that. So, I mean, and Apple was making investments in the environment when Steve was still alive. And for some reason, the environment is political. Shouldn't be, but it is.
Well, it is because the environment costs money, and if you're an Apple shareholder, you of one stripe, you're going to question: is there a good financial return? Does this
true.
make fiscal
Despite
sense?
all evidence to the contrary, you're right.
Despite evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, I mean, I think Apple has proven that it can make money and be environmentally responsible.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
and we could look at the fact that green energy is becoming more and more profitable all the time. But that's beside the point. That's completely beside the point.
No, it's not beside the point, Brian. I mean, that is the point. There was a time that people questioned the economic viability at that time, and is it a good investment to spend that kind of money for a solar farm, or a wind turbine, or a water turbine, whatever, as opposed to just buying your electricity off the grid. Certainly, the farther along we go, the more sense it makes to be renewable, and not just for green agendas, but also for business agendas. So I don't think the two are not in conflict. It's just that circumstances and valuations were different at two different times in the past, as opposed to now.
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of delighted that we're on the same side.
Well, I mean, looking at the positions Tim has taken and the way that he has gone about it, I mean, during the presidential election, there were questions over who he was having dinner with this week versus who he was having dinner with next week. And at the end of the day, somebody's going to get elected, and it only makes sense to have had some experience with those people or exposure to those people, or have them have those people have exposure to Tim.
To your point, I actually think that Tim Cook has often put his politics aside for the benefit of Apple, and again that the things that he has spoken about are things that he actually thinks makes Apple better. A political like I didn't hear anyone saying that Tim Cook shouldn't talk about politics when he came out for encryption repeatedly. And that's because the vast majority of people who are commenting on that topic are largely in my camp, which is pro encryption, and that encryption is necessary for a strong and secure America. But that's a political issue. The subject of whether or not the government or law enforcement should have backdoors into our encrypted devices is the definition of a political issue. But no one was saying that Tim Cook shouldn't be talking about it. They only say that when it's something that they disagree with, when it's some kind of social issue.
There's a lot of validity to what you just said. I do think that there were factions out there that were making political judgments about Tim's stance on that. And for the record, I'm with you. I mean, because I think that I think the more people one can disagree with Tim on this. One can actually a reasonable and uninformed mind can believe that law enforcement is somehow better with backdoors into our encrypted communications, right? I mean, the evidence doesn't support that, but I understand that not everybody has seen all the evidence, including me, or maybe even is going to interpret that evidence in the same way that I have. Whatever. But people weren't saying that Tim shouldn't be talking about it. No.
Did you see people doing that?
No, I did not. And I think that maybe the reason that they didn't feel that they weren't criticizing that is because it was directly an Apple issue.
But so was the immigration ban. It affected Apple. Apple had employees affected by that. Apple does business in those countries, and it has foreign nationals working for it from those countries.
But the the encryption was seen by most people, most of the general public, I think, as an Apple question. It was not, can I unlock a smartphone? It was, can I unlock an iPhone? And I think there's a difference.
Yeah,
there.
but that's only because nothing's keeping law enforcement out of Android devices. So
that's a good point. Yeah. So
I mean, it's because Android sucks that Android wasn't at the center of this issue.
How do you really feel about it, Brian?
Screw Android.
Careful, we're going to lose our tag.
I have almost messed up a couple of times in this conversation already.
No, that's a really interesting example, and I honestly hadn't thought of that one either. But you're right, there wasn't a lot of questions as to whether there was a lot of question over whether he was right, but not whether he should be addressing the issue.
And that, to me, it's utterly legitimate to question whether or not Tim Cook is right on immigration. Differing minds can have reasonable opinions about this. And that's not the issue. Where I get cranky is when people say he shouldn't be talking about these things. I don't think, in my opinion, he is yet to talk about anything that is inappropriate for Apple. Taxation, another issue. Taxation, the definition of politics intersecting with business and technology, especially with multinationals. Tim Cook's got to speak up on that stuff. Now, mind you, I don't like a lot of what Apple does. It's all legal, but I don't like it. You know, I believe it's very interesting. Tim Cook said, did you watch the his Glasgow University thing a couple days ago?
No,
a couple days ago as of now. I think it came out. I think it was on Friday that I posted that video. And so it happened sometime last week as of this recording, which is Monday the 13th. Am I breaking the fourth wall here?
Oh no, that's fine.
He did a question and answer session with students at Glasgow University in Scotland, and he quoted Martin Luther King, which he often does. He greatly admires Martin Luther King, And he quoted Martin Luther King, and I can't do the quote, unfortunately, and it's not like I actually prepare for these interviews. So he said something along the lines of, if you believe in something and you don't speak out about it, you are giving your okay for it. In other words, when you're silent, you're giving approval. Dr. King said it infinitely more elegantly than I did, and Tim Cook quoted it much better than I did too. But that's the general thumb. His point being that when you believe in something that's right and wrong, it's your job to speak up about it, and that you should always speak up about it. And if you don't speak up about it, you're okaying the thing that you think is wrong. And I, for instance, think that it is wrong for a corporation to get tax cuts in exchange for opening some kind of facility or business or aspect of their operations in a particular community, especially when it actually puts that community eventually at a disadvantage because they're not actually carrying their weight. To wit, Samsung has a facility, and I'm actually not just bagging on Samsung. Apple does this crap all the time. Samsung has a major facility in Manor, Texas, outside of Austin, where they make processors, including at least one time, processors that they were making for Apple. Samsung won a huge tax concession from the local and county governments. And the result is there are a whole bunch of students going to school in the Manor School District, but the school district doesn't have enough freaking money to bloody well take care of them. So that's cutting off it's not only doing the wrong thing, it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. But yay, shareholders are going to make a few more extra pennies. So that's just freaking great, right? And companies do this stuff all the time. In my opinion, if you're going to do business in a place, pay your fair share of the taxes in that local municipality. Is it legal for Apple to pit one state against another, or one county against another, or one town against another? Yes, perfectly legal. Is it the right thing to do? No, it's not. If you want to go open up in Louisiana, pay Louisiana taxes. If you want to go open up somewhere in Texas, pay Texas taxes. If you think that Austin is the bee's knees and you want to have some kind of factory in Austin, pay I forget the county. How could I forget the county? I used to live in Austin. Pay whatever that county's taxes are. Do the right thing. And Tim Cook clearly believes in doing the right thing. But when it comes to taxes, he often doesn't do the right thing. It's legal what they're doing in the EU. It's legal doing all of this. I forget the name of it now. Again, it's not like I prepare for these. This practice that the multinationals are doing, where they license intellectual property to an entity in a low taxation district. That entity then turns around and licenses that intellectual property to subsidiaries in other countries that have higher taxation rates, so that all of the profit is actually generated in the low tax district. This is what's going on in Ireland, right? Not a lot of Apple critics anyway. Apple haters on the tax front like to say that Apple is offshoring money or hiding money or taking money out overseas, and they're not. They're not doing that at all. They're not doing that at all. What they are doing is leveraging better than everyone else on the planet local tax laws and using the legal system to minimize the amount of taxes to which they are exposed. It's legal, but it's not right. If you want to make much money in Germany, pay German taxes. That's what I think. Crazy idea. And in the meanwhile, though, it is perfectly reasonable for Tim Cook to speak about these issues. As a matter of fact, I love Tim Cook's response when he was hauled up in front of the Senate on Apple's taxation. Which, by the way, keep in mind that Apple is the biggest American taxpayer. Right? Apple pays more taxes in the United States of America than any other company. And this is despite the fact that it earns so much of its money overseas and hasn't actually paid those taxes to the states yet, because it keeps the money overseas, which is, again, legal. What Tim Cook said, he was being hammered by these senators on the left and right, Republicans and Democrats. They were hammering on Steve, often on a factually incorrect basis. And Tim's response, well, I said Steve, didn't I? Tim's response, I'm a little agitated. Tim's response was, we follow the law. If you want us to behave differently, change the law. It's almost a word-for-word quote. I think it is a word-for-word quote. That is so true. I utterly believe that. Apple follows the law. If you want Apple to behave differently, change the law. But at the same time, I want Apple to do what's right.
The truth according to Bryan.
Yes.
Amen. I would love to. I'd love to debate you, but I think what we're going to end up debating, and we're not going to debate it, is the intersection of management's obligation to shareholders versus, to use your phrase, what is right.
That's a lovely cover for crappy people to hide behind to excuse their abhorrent behavior.
Nah, I can't go with that. I think if you're talking about illegal activities, then I'm with you. But if I'm handing Apple money of mine to use, I expect a return on it, and I expect the best return I can get. And so so if values have become that important to me, then I'm going to look at Apple's position on green energy and immigration and diversity and whatever else. And if I don't agree with those, I'm going to sell the stock and take my money back out and go maybe to somebody who's more in line with my values. But at the end of the day,
I respect where you're coming from on that, Chuck, and there has to be a line. A CEO must do what's in the best interest of his shareholders. The problem is that the way we interpret that right now becomes licensed to be crappy. And that is the part that I don't like. I don't know how to fix that, but I would like to fix it. Yeah, I would like, for instance, I would like for companies to also have a responsibility to the communities that they are in. That should also be a responsibility.
I don't want to go too far down this path, Bryan, because we'll be here all night. But I will say this, that you are requiring the company, in this case Apple, to take some responsibility. I love that. What I think I hear you saying is you are absolving the community of the responsibility, and I don't agree with that. Okay,
that's a good point. The reality is that counties and cities in particular, and states to a lesser extent, allow themselves to be played by large corporations. They participate, and if they all stood up and did the right thing and said, no, you want to open up a thing, go come pay your taxes. If they all did that, well, then companies wouldn't be trying to get the tax breaks.
Well, but there's also the consideration that a lot of these factory locations are good for the local area because they do provide jobs. Do they put a strain on resources? Absolutely, no question. If you start bringing 400 and 500 people into an area that was not designed, but had been up to that point 200 or 300, there's going to be a strain on resources, everything from water and power on down. So
roads, schools, water, power, sewers, traffic lights, street lights, curbs, sidewalks. Someone's got to pay for that stuff.
Fire department, police department. I'm with you. But somebody in the city, on the city council or town council or wherever it happens to be, says, we think the trade-off is worth it, or these are our terms, and we think the trade-off is worth it.
Okay, yeah. Both parties are at fault here, but let's do the right thing. Let's everybody do the right thing. Start doing the right thing.
As long as you don't start blaming somebody, excuse me.
I'm not letting the city of Maynard off.
Okay.
I'm not. They agreed to that. Absolutely. No one held a gun to their head. They all thought, oh my God, let's get this company and it's going to be awesome. And it turns out it wasn't particularly awesome. Right. And again, Apple is a master at this. Apple routinely gets tax breaks in various forms whenever it sets up an operation somewhere in the States. It probably does so outside the States too. I'm infinitely less familiar with what Apple does outside of this country. But I mean,
you just use one example for Texas and Samsung, but I'm not totally convinced that that same imbalance holds true for everywhere Apple has opened things up. Do they negotiate their best deal? Absolutely. You do too for everything you buy, and so do I.
Yeah, I don't think taxes should be negotiable. How's that? Pay your fair share.
Oh, yeah, but man,
Taxes should not be negotiable. I can't negotiate my taxes. Why is it that the super big company can? And I know why. It's because they have money and they have lawyers and they can afford to actually hire people that can do these kinds of negotiations.
Nope.
What?
Nope. You know why? Because they are allowed to by the taxing authorities. The taxing authties look at it. But
the reason why they're allowed to is because of the amount of money that's involved.
Well, maybe so, but if the municipal authority wanted to just say, sorry, not negotiable, this is what it is, they have every right to do that. But instead, they're making a judgment that this deal is too big to go across the state line. So we want it here. We don't want it over there.
Do the right thing, Chuck. Do the right thing. Don't ask for it.
Can't agree with you.
Pay your fair share, man. Taxes shouldn't be negotiable. Taxes should not be negotiable. That is such a disgusting and abhorrent idea. Taxes should not be negotiable. Oh my goodness.
We were not going to do this. How'd this happen? Listen, I think it's a good discussion, because I do think that these are things that need to be looked at when we start talking about Apple being involved in politics. I think you were brilliant when you brought up the FBI thing. You're brilliant when you brought up the tax thing. These are, by their very nature, political things. Apple is so big that they have to be involved in these discussions.
Yeah, and not only just the sheer amount of money, but the sheer, I mean, it's astounding how important smartphones have become. Not just iPhones, but I mean, from my perspective, smartphones wouldn't be a thing if it weren't for iPhones.
Agreed.
And Apple dominates the mind share, and Apple, I mean, again, Android devices were not at the center of the encryption controversy. Why? Because the FBI and the NSA and the CIA weren't having problems getting into those devices. So kind of like, not much of an issue. At some point, I would assume, and to be fair, to utterly be fair, and Google has been greatly enhancing security in Android to be absolutely fair. I don't want to incorrectly infer otherwise. But it's Apple that was at the center of this debate, and a large part of it is because mobile communications are so important now, and these mobile devices that carry our world. We carry our world around with us in our pocket, and that's the sort of thing that does eventually get governments involved. I mean, for instance, it is true that the bad guys are increasingly using encrypted communications to communicate and to plan things and to save their data and to store their information, right? This is a true thing, and this makes law enforcement's job harder, and it makes the intelligence community's jobs harder. That is politics. The political process is what sets the rules that at least in this country, that law enforcement has to play by, and that the intelligence communities theoretically have to play by. But that's kind of a broader topic than we have time to get into also. And these are things, like Steve Jobs always talked about the intersection of technology and arts, the arts and technology and arts, right? But technology and entertainment intersect, and technology and politics intersect, and technology in lots and lots of things are increasingly intersecting, because technology is becoming such an important part of what we do. And you cannot avoid politics.
We agree completely. And I hope we've given people something to think about in that regard. Because even if you don't agree with Tim, even if you don't agree with the political positions of either side, whichever the sides there are, this is something that Apple has to be involved in.
Yeah, one way or another.
Yeah.
And I am not sitting here on your show or anywhere else saying that people shouldn't argue with Tim or that Tim is absolutely right. I agree with Tim on most of these things for sure. But I'm not saying that everybody has to agree with him. I do say, however, that he has not crossed the line on what he should and should not talk about.
And I would agree with you in hindsight, because he has been talking about those issues as they relate to Apple.
I mean, Tim Cook is the most careful speaker in the world, in the rank of technology executives. Every word that comes out of that man's mouth is considered.
Yeah.
Like, I have seen him speak angrily do you remember the piece I did about when he went after that right wing shill tank that was basically saying trying to attack Apple's environmental policies. Right. And that was the angriest I've seen Tim be, without a question. And yet still every single word that came out of his mouth considered and careful.
And he defended his point. As you said, carefully, and everything was considered.
Yeah, he defended his. Yeah, I mean, again, reasonable people can disagree.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, but my point is that he is such a careful speaker, and that's part of why I say that I have no doubt there are political topics about which he is passionate that we've not heard a peep from him about. Because I think he is so careful.
And if you think about it, if he's not that careful, the impact of what he does say on things that are Apple related is reduced. I'm not going to say minimized, but reduced.
That's true. And goodness knows he knows that.
Yes.
He knows that if he were to start flying every lefty banner on the planet, because let's be honest, the man is left of center. Everything we know about Tim is left of center. It's possible there are some things we don't know where he's not left of center. But if he started flying every progressive banner possible, well, to your point, people start paying a lot less attention about what he has to say about Apple and politics. He just becomes a noisy leftist.
Well, he doesn't.
A rich, noisy leftist.
He doesn't take the leftist position on everything, because you just said it. With the taxation issues, with some of those things, that to me is probably, I would say that's more middle of the road. He's not doing your do the right thing, because that's obviously where you feel.
No, he's not doing my idea of do the right thing.
Right. He's doing
from one can argue that he's doing the right thing because he is A, taking care of the shareholders, and B, following the law. Right. Reasonable people can have a different opinion than mine on that.
Okay. And I think you and I probably differ on that one. But
you're wrong and I'm right.
No, that's the name of our show. The show we're going to do. You're wrong and I'm right. What can you say? I mean, I think
that's a really good point. That's a point where Tim is towing the line for shareholders. And actually, to your point and to my point, I think that really backs up the idea that the things he does speak about are things that he thinks make Apple better.
Well, and I spin it back to you. Yes, he said that in front of Congress, and that's his position. But he also tore into that gentleman at the shareholders meeting about.
But that was about the environment, not about taxes.
No, but my point is, that as I recall, the story was something about, are you sure this is worth it? That the investments you're making in green or something along those lines is worth it. And the gentleman was not happy with the way Apple was spending its money, basically. And Tim,
no, the gentleman was unhappy that Apple was spending its money on things that he doesn't believe in.
You mean the gentleman that the gentleman doesn't believe in?
Yeah, let's call him what he is. He's a lobbyist, but he's an attorney and a lobbyist. Whether or not he's a gentleman remains to be seen. But he wasn't cranky about whether or not Apple should be spending it. He actually thinks that Apple should not be spending money on the environment. That this is a bad thing. His position made that clear. The papers that organization has put out have made that clear. It wasn't just that he was arguing that shareholders weren't getting a good return. He was arguing that Apple should in no way whatsoever do anything that's green, period.
And Tim set him straight on Apple's agenda and
Correct.
And what he thought about it and why. And so, that's 1 minute. 1 minute he's towing the shareholder line as you phrased it, and the next minute he's very much saying these are Apple's values and this is what we believe about the green agenda. So I guess I don't. It's interesting that you see Tim as being left of center on everything. I see him a lot more centrist, and I see him addressing things in a very business-like fashion from an Apple perspective. And I, as a shareholder, and we've talked about this on the show, we're both still. I think you're still a shareholder.
I am very tiny. Thank you. That's a very good bit of disclosure. I am a tiny and mostly insignificant Apple shareholder.
And I would qualify myself as the same. But the point is that we're shareholders, and we probably have different agendas as shareholders. But the one thing there's no question about is we don't have to wonder where Tim and Apple are coming from on a lot of these issues. And if we're not happy, we can go somewhere else. And if we
but part of it is that we're smart enough to see that Apple's making money, but we were probably also both shareholders when Apple wasn't making a lot of money. We're Apple shareholders because we're fans.
Yeah, but at some point you would have cashed out. I mean, because if we were both shareholders when Apple was not making money, by now we're Apple shareholders at a point that we could have cashed out and made a decent return.
Sure.
And so we're probably holders of Apple stock because we're shareholders or because we're fans.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm not sure we solved anything, Brian, but hopefully we gave folks a little something to think about.
I think I probably gave some people more reason to hate me.
No, I don't buy that. I don't
don't know. I think I don't know. Let us know. If you hate me, folks?
Yeah, if we would like to know your reactions, and
because most of the people that hate me are not hearing this. They stopped.
They've hung up
tuned
by
out.
Now. Yeah. The two that are left.
Yeah, the two that are left. Let me know how much you love me.
Well,
I'd appreciate it. Neil loves me. Neil Pan. Hey Neil, what's up, brother?
Yeah.
Woo!
well, I've got Brian. I've got the perfect place for them to let us know, because I've just opened a MacVoices Facebook group.
And what would that URL be?
I don't know. Great question. I'll have a link in the show notes. I know that the MacVoices page is facebook.com/MacVoices. I think it's facebook.com/user or group/MacVoices, but I'll let you know. Yeah, I'm not quite used to it yet. The ironic thing is that one of the reasons I opened it finally is that I was looking for a place that we could have some of these discussions free of some of the political ire that we see in our main feeds.
You're turning to Facebook to have conversations free of political ire?
Well, I'm turning to the group.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm turning to the group, and right now it's a public group. But if it gets out of hand, we'll close it, because we don't need this kind of discourse. I think is healthy, because I think that it addresses an Apple thing. I don't think it's appropriate that we debate Apple's position on immigration or green or whatever. I think but that the fact that we can debate should Apple have a position and be espousing those positions, I think is absolutely legitimate. And that was the genesis of this conversation, why I wanted to get you here. Because I think there are a lot of people out there that all they see is politics, and stop the politics. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And if you're an Apple fan, you're going to hear about some of this stuff. You have to.
Yeah. Can I mention another thing?
Sure.
China. Apple is increasingly a political pawn used by the U.S. and China. Actually, China uses Apple as a political pawn against the United States, as both countries position themselves in a tit-for-tat war. This has been going on for China and the U.S. have been jockeying for position for a lot longer than Apple has been a big thing. But Apple is now a big thing, and Apple gets used. We saw in the Obama administration when the Obama administration kept several Chinese-owned corporations from being involved in our telecommunications industry here in the States. China started rattling Apple's doors, and it was all politics. It was politics on both sides, and we see right now an area where politics are affecting Apple in China. Just even with the local politics, with the recent change in leadership at the top in China, there is a lot less interest in bringing U.S. companies, Western companies, into China to be players. And there's a lot more interest in fostering Chinese industry and Chinese companies. And that's going to increasingly be a problem for Apple. It's pure politics. Apple can't escape that. Yeah. I mean, it's politics in a different way than U.S. Left and right politics, but it's still politics, and it's because Apple is so big. I mean, Apple is the biggest taxpayer in the United States. I mean, that's a thing. The U.S. government has to be interested in Apple's well-being. That's also a thing. So. Yeah, Apple's just too big. Politics are here, man.
Yeah, when they were out of the garage, it wasn't a big deal, but now it is. And
it wasn't a big deal when they were just making iPods and Macs.
Yeah. Well, and again, another great point you brought up is the mobile communication thing, and the mind share that iPads and iPhones have, as well as the market share, and what gets done with them,
and the profit share,
like
90. I think it was 92% of the profits in the December quarter, because Samsung fell on its exploding battery face.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, when you have this much money involved, the political process is always going to be involved too. Always. And it should, right. I mean, I'm not saying that the political process will always result in the right things taking place, but when you have this much money, I mean, Apple has so much money. When you have this much money accumulated into the hands of a single company, government should be paying attention.
Yeah, regardless of who it is.
Regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
They may make the wrong choice, those governments. They may do the wrong thing, but they should be paying attention.
Brian, thank you.
Yeah, brother.
It was good. It was good discussion.
Thank you, man. It was good. It was fun.
Yeah, a lot of wisdom.
Thanks. That's very kind of you.
Well, I mean it. Folks, we want to know what you think. The two of you that are left.
Yeah, it's Laura and Neil.
Yeah.
That's it. No one else.
So come on over to Facebook, join the MacVoices group, and let us know. Please. It should be interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see you next. Oh, I should. I mean, it's kind of obvious to me, but where are all the places folks can find you when you're not here sharing the wisdom?
MacObserver.com. I'm the editor-in-chief, co-founder. My personal blog is at geektells.com. Occasionally, I tweet at TM O'Brien.
Great.
Thanks for asking.
Good to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having me, too, man. I appreciate it. It's this, to me, is an important conversation to have. So I appreciate you making it happen.
I agree. It is an important conversation to have. That's why I wanted you to have it with me.
Thanks, man.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, you're so dreamy.
Kelly says it. Happy Valentine's Day, too.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Notables on Mac Voices. As you can tell, we have way too much fun here. I really, really sincerely hope that we gave you some things to think about. I hope we didn't offend anybody. That was not our purpose. It never is. It's always to make you think, make you hopefully a better informed Apple fan.
I don't care if I offend anybody. How's that?
Well, one of us doesn't care if he offends anybody. But anyway, until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.